Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of the Here I Am podcast. It's crazy. I'm at double digits now. It's so weird. But I am here today with a fantabulous man, and his name is Gray, or as you may know him on the TikToks and the Instagram, the TikTok Peacock. What up, buddy? How are you?
What's going on, man? I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. So, you and I met through TikTok, and uh every time I'm talking to like somebody on here, I'm always just kind of fascinated on like what made you start like not only just downloading the app, but then like wanting to create content.
Um, for me, I've always been big into social media. I've had Facebook, I've had Instagram. Um, I've always had a very outgoing personality, and when TikTok really started to become like a big hit, like back when COVID, because a lot of people joined up during COVID.
Yeah, that's when I joined up too. Yeah.
Joined TikTok during the COVID, like when COVID first started, but I only joined to watch videos. I didn't join to post. I had no idea, what to even do. So I just joined strictly to watch videos, which is what I did. And then people in my community where I live and worked, everybody was, they were all like, you should start making TikToks. You would be good at it. You're funny, you got a good personality, you do the videos that you do on Facebook, and we think you would do good at it. So it started to become more of a trend. So finally, my police chief at the time, I went to him and was like, "Hey, would you be okay with me starting a TikTok and using TikTok to kind of help humanize the badge?" And at the time, he was all for it. So I think I started posting in August of 2020. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, I joined TikTok like in March of 2020 and then started posting. I think my very first video was in August.
So you mentioned that you're a police officer. For those not us, I know, but for those of the people who are watching or listening, don't know. I know when I joined TikTok, it was right during the George Floyd incident, and I joined because like everything on my socials of like Instagram and Facebook and everything like that, and this is like peak COVID and everything, where it was just all so depressing and there was like so much anger and whatnot. And so like my friend told me about it and I went, okay, I'll do it just to watch videos. And then shortly after I was like, oh, I think I could do this. But for you, when you're saying you're trying to like humanize the badge, did you find that your job got a lot harder during that time? Like a lot more people were getting a little like more skeptical of the police officers, and do you feel for me, I saw the world hurting, and they were trying to figure out where to focus that anger, and a lot of times it got focused on the badge, not necessarily like getting upset at police officers, but like the entity itself.
Yeah. So for me, just a quick backstory on me becoming a cop. I became a cop during the Michael Brown case in
Oh.
Ferguson. So when I became a cop, when I went through the police academy, I became a cop right at the like tip of the iceberg, so to speak. The Ferguson, Missouri case, Michael Brown, the hands up, don't shoot, that whole ordeal. That right there was kind of what started this whole, Black Lives Matter movement and things like that. And then from there, it just, the cases begin to build. And every time you would hear of another shooting or another incident with the police, it became more and more. The George Floyd case actually had I think, more of an impact than any other case, just because, in my opinion, as an officer, I feel like the way it was handled was completely wrong. There was wrong on both ends, but, you know, the end result could have been changed. It could have been a different ending result had the officers handled their situation a little bit differently than they did. Just from the footage that I watched. Now, I've watched most of the footage. I haven't watched just a 15 or 20-second clip here. I've watched a lot of the footage. And just from what I've seen, it could have been handled differently. That case right there in particular it put a big damper on being a police officer in America. And I'm not going to sit here and say that there weren't times where I didn't sit back and think, like, is this really what I want to be doing? Do I really want to work a job where I go into work every day knowing that I'm hated by so many just because of what I do, just because of this uniform that I wear, this badge that I put on? Even though it's never changed me as a person, it's never changed who I am. But, majority of people that hate the police, they hate the police just because we are the police. They
Yeah.
don't give us outside the uniform. They don't give us a chance outside the badge. Um, so that case did, yeah, it did make things a lot harder as a police officer, for sure.
Yeah, I have friends who are police officers, and I had one point in time where I was going to pursue to be a police officer, but I wasn't doing it for, I was doing it for mostly to try to make someone else proud of me for doing it, not necessarily because like I wanted to, like I knew like if I did it, what kind of impact I wanted to make. And but I have like friends who are police officers, and I did see change in them, and it's, for me, as like, I understand it. It's hard putting on a badge and walking into every situation automatically being hated, even if you're there to like break something up or help someone out. It's like immediately like, no, I don't like this person, like and you have no idea, and it's like, oh, like assuming the worst case scenario type of thing. And for them, it really started to change them. And like for me, like I understood it, because like they're working out in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is like a really rough department to work for, because you just see the worst of the worst, and like the crime rate and the gang rate out there is like insane. So it's really interesting to hear that you say like it hasn't changed you in that way, and that's a beautiful thing, I think, because you're holding on to that good heart, good intention. Not to say that the people I know aren't, but you can just see how the job has like definitely affected them, and how exhausted that they can feel, because like again, they're seeing the worst of the worst in the whole thing.
I've been there. I've had those moments where it was just like, is this really what I want to be doing? Is this really, do I want to go to work knowing that there's somebody out there that wants to kill me just because of what I do? Like, that is exhausting. It's mentally draining knowing that every time I put on this uniform, and even today, every time I put on this uniform and I step foot in that patrol car and I start my shift, I have to keep my head on a swivel, because I know that there's somebody out there somewhere that wants to take my life just because of what I do.
Yeah.
It,
Has
it has
that
no bearing on who I am as a person. It has no bearing on what color my skin is. It has no bearing on any of that. It's just the fact that I wear a uniform and I'm a cop. People they want to do harm automatically.
How do you feel your job has changed? Because I feel like, I say George Floyd incident, and really like, it was murder. The dude was killed. He was
He
choked out
was.
to death. um I feel like that was like it was kind of like there was like a stock pot, it's like a bonfire, right? And that was the match that just lit it all up, right? So do you feel like your job has gotten harder since then?
I think initially, yes. Now, I don't think the George Floyd case has as much impact now as it did, I would say, 6 months to a year after it happened. Um, I'd say now, it I mean, the stigmatism of the George Floyd case is still there. You still hear about it here and there, but it's not as big as it was. When it first
Mhm.
happened, the first few months after, all the protests were happening in America, and you've seen a lot of police departments that were lining up with the protesters and walking with them in support. Our department was one of those departments. We lined up with our protesters in our town. They wanted to do a walk, a peaceful walk, and we walked with them. We selected, I don't know, 9 or 10 officers from our department to go out and walk with them, just to show that we were there to support them and we understand the cause. I don't think now it's as hard as it was then. That's not to say it won't change. There's going to be another case. There's going to be something else that happens. It's just, that's the world we live in, and it's all going to turn upside down again. mean, it's bound to happen. It's just a matter of when's it going to happen.
Yeah, I hear that. But again, like that's why I love about your content that you produce is because like you're showing like, no, I'm a cop, I'm a good dude, my heart's in the right place. And it's just like it's hard because it's like, you know, there's a when an incident like that happens or a case like that happens, it's the assumption of like it's like the assumption of like it's all cops, you know what I mean? Where I think for me as like a man, like I can hear like, you know, a guy destroys like a woman's life and it just puts a bad name on. This is like a really weird example, but like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like it
Right.
just kind of destroys a woman's view on a man, and like the assumption of like it's all men, and to a point it is like, and it's hard, and there's like a stigma to it, and it takes a lot for like a good man to kind of like break those walls and break those barriers down to be like be like understanding and compassionate and patient with people. um and I'm sure that has to be like what it was like for you, especially after that initial thing. It's like, no, I totally get it. Like a lot of these cases are happening, and it just seems like, wow, the whole entirety of police across America are all like this. But it kind of adds on to your job of like, no, we got to prove it, we got to get the trust of the community and show like, no, it's not all police officers, like just like,
And that you're 100% right. Um, and for me, I use my platform. Obviously, I don't post just police content. I do a lot of stuff in uniform, but I do a lot of stuff out of uniform as well. But I like to use my content and my platform just to do exactly that, to show the human side of cops, to show that, hey, you know what? I have a sense of humor. I'm not a mindless robot that just goes out here and writes tickets and hooks people up, takes them to jail every day. It's not what I do. I, as a cop, I value more the interaction with people versus giving somebody a ticket or taking somebody to jail. You know, if I can change somebody's life for the better using my platform or using, me as a police officer, I'm going to choose that any day and all day over taking somebody to jail or writing somebody a speeding ticket. And that's one thing that I've kind of learned as I've grown as a cop. When I first became a cop, I was gung ho. I was that rookie right out of the academy that all I wanted to do is write speeding tickets or write tickets or take people to jail, or I wanted to get into everything I could get into. I've been a cop for almost 8 years. Now I'm to the point where it's like, no, that's not me. I don't want to be labeled as that cop. Like, hey, if Mr. Scott over here pulls you over, you're definitely getting a ticket. Or if Mr. Scott over here pulls you over, he's definitely going to find a reason to take you to jail. Like, I don't want that reputation, never have. So I've always tried to use, ever since I've had this social media thing going, I've tried to use that to show people that that's not who I am. As there's 900,000 cops in America. I think I looked the stat up the other day. I was real curious. So there's about 900,000 cops in America. When people say all cops are bad, or people say, most cops are this way or most cops are that way, my question to those people are, well, how do you know? Have you met every cop in America? There's 900,000 cops in America.
yeah.
You met every America, or have you met majority of the cops in America? Because if you have, that's an impressive feat. That's a lot of people to meet. I'm like,
And lucky
but
you get to travel that much.
yeah, right. But I'm like, I can tell you haven't met me, and all you're seeing is this person that you see on the internet. You see me for 15-second clips, maybe a minute clip here and there. But that's all you see is a 15-second clip of this guy. And you see me wearing a uniform. So you automatically assume that because I'm wearing a uniform, I'm a bad dude and this is what I do. But if you would take a minute just to have a conversation with me, and I've had this conversation with several people on TikTok, like, listen, just take a second, have a conversation with me. I'll follow you, you follow me, let's message each other and let's have a conversation, an educated, intellectual conversation between two adults. One thing for me that I like to do is I try to put myself in other people's shoes.
Yeah, that's important.
I don't try to jump to conclusions. I don't try to assume anything, So the Black Lives Matter thing and all the protests and things like that, I understand where they're coming from and I get it. And to a point, I'm okay with the Black Lives Matter movement 100%, as long as they're doing it the correct way. You know, when they're burning down buildings and they're killing
Yeah.
people and they're mobbing people, it's a whole different ballgame. That's not a protest. But if
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
out protesting peacefully, you know, exercising your rights the correct way, hey, I'm all for it. And I'll back you 100%. And I enjoy talking to people about the Black Lives Matter movement because I enjoy hearing people's reasoning for why they support it or why they
Yeah.
don't support it, you know.
Yeah.
Really good conversations with some unique people on TikTok uh, about the Black Lives Matter movement. You know, it's nice to be able to get somebody else's input and why they feel a certain way. And, you know, and if I can listen to them and truly listen to them and understand why they feel this way, then I can put myself in their shoes and say, well, you know what? I get it. And if I was in your shoes, I'd probably feel the same way. So,
No, I totally hear that. And that's a beautiful way to put it, because it's like, you know, we go by a lot of times, it's like breaking the stereotypes. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, this group of people does this. Well, really? Have you met every single one of them? No. And it's I'm a big Ted Lasso fan. And on one of their seasons, there was a line that was said, because it was like Ted Lasso didn't like therapists because he had a really bad experience with a therapist. And then his buddy was like, what was the thing that you told me when I said I was never going to date a dancer again? And he's like, all people are different people. And he's like, damn it, you're right. Because all people are different people. We all have our own unique stories, our own unique experiences. And, you know, we might have like some similarities to them, but it's all like on our own. And I want to thank you for like just being able to jump in and dive into that, because, you know, I think that could be a touchy subject, but I think it's also important to show like, no, like we're like, I get it. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes and see things from your perspective so I can have a better understanding. And if only people could do that around the world, that would be a lot better. Because I know for me, like I've had a lot of people give me hate on TikTok because I'm posting emotional content. And I'm like,
right.
I get it. You see a man being a vulnerable. And for me, I go, something has to be going on in your life to make you do that. And I try not to, I'm not, occasionally I'll get really snippy and I could be a dick about it, but most of the time I try to go, I'm sorry that you feel some sort of way where you feel like you need to come at me when you have no idea who I am, what I'm doing, what I'm going through, what I'm doing to correct whatever is emotionally going on in my head or anything like that. And it's just like, you know, the whole don't assume because it makes an ass out of you and me is a true thing. And I think that's a lesson that a lot of people forget about.
And that's I use that statement all the time is, you know, don't assume, because you know what assuming gets you. And that's what people do. They assume. They look at somebody and they assume by looking at that person, by the way they dress, the way they act, the way they talk, what they drive, where they live, they assume certain things about certain people. You know, people look at me and they see that I'm a cop and they see that I'm white and they automatically assume, well, oh, he hates black people or he hates other races or he's this or he's that. Like, no, take a second to get to know me. Come over here and talk to me. Like, let's have a conversation. I promise you, I'll change your mind. I'll have your mind changed within 30 seconds of talking to me. You know, that's just not who I am.
I literally had a dude come up to me at the gym, and I'm not 100% sure if I shared this in the podcast already, but it made me laugh so fucking hard. This dude comes up to me and he was like, hey man, do you have a second? And I was like, yeah, dude, what's up? And he's like, I have to say, I've seen you in here for like the past couple months or so. And I have to say, the first time I saw you with your hair up the way it is right now, with your hair up and whatnot, I thought you were the biggest douchebag of all time. I was like, I cracked up. I was like, fair, I get it. I could see why you would think that. Okay. And then he goes, but then I was like brushing my teeth, and then I was scrolling on TikTok, and then one of your videos came up. And I was like, wait, I recognize this guy. And then I started like going down the rabbit hole of your content. And I was like, oh shit, this dude's been through a lot. He's not a douchebag. He's actually like really kind. And he's like, I'm so sorry for calling you a douchebag or thinking that you were a douchebag. And I was like, thanks. I would have like no idea if he thought I was a douchebag or not in general, like without ever interacting with him. But I was like, it was kind of like was kind of like a you watched like the lesson of like don't assume things about people just flash across his eyes, and it's just like, yeah, we're all going through something. Like everyone has these experiences of going through some shit, and it's like we can't assume anything. We can't assume people's stories when we know nothing about it.
Yeah, I've always used the term like don't judge a book by its cover as well. You can't see the cover of a book and assume that it's going to be a great book just because it looks good, or look at a book and look at the cover and think it's going to be a terrible book because it looks terrible.
I will say I have done that on a couple of occasions though, where I bought books because I was like, this cover looks really cool, so I'm going to check it out. And in
Mm-hmm.
both of those instances, I was correct. But I was like, this isn't a lesson for life. I shouldn't be doing this all the time. But I was like, this cover just looks really cool, and I just wanted to check it out. And I think there was like one was like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. I think that was one of them. And then the other one was like Dorothy Must Die, and it was like a sick, twisted, like Wizard of Oz series. And I was like, that just looks cool. For some reason I just want to read this, and I just want to see what it's about. And then I read them and I was like, wow, these books are amazing.
Yeah, I've definitely bought books based just looking at the cover. Just I see the cover and I'm like, wow, that looks cool. Like if the book's anything the way the cover looks, it's going to be great. And then I dive into them, and sometimes I'm like, this isn't what I expected. I can't get into this.
Yeah,
Or a
I've
lot
had
of
that
times,
before.
uh, but I like that's always been a big thing, a big term for me to use. Is, don't judge a book by its cover. You could be looking at somebody that's on the side of the road who's dressed in grungy clothes. They could be the richest person ever. You know what I mean? They could be loaded. And we've got a guy like that in my town, in my area. This dude is loaded to the teeth. But if you looked at him and you see what he drives and you see what he wears and the way he dresses, not knowing this guy, you would never know he had a penny to his name. And this
Yeah.
guy is worth tons. Like there's no telling how much money this dude has. You know,
Yeah, I have
and
friends like that too, where you look at them and like they're like the happiest people in the whole, like their energy is infectious, like smile that just like makes you go like, I just want to be your friend, dude. Like I just want to hang out with you.
mm-hmm.
And then you find out he was an alcoholic and he had to go to rehab and like do all this, like either battle some like hardcore depression and and addiction issues. And you look at him, you're like, you have no idea. And it's like, again, even like with like happy people, like you can't always assume that they're happy all the time 24/7. Like your content, like you have like this great infectious energy, but I'm sure you have your really rough days too. And especially like with your job, like you were saying earlier, like shit weighs on you, on like there's somebody out there who might want to end my life, or this job is just really hard. Or I'm sure you've had instances where you approached a scene and you just saw something horrific there, and it probably sat with you for a long time.
I mean, I have things that I've seen and dealt with that I carry with me today. That I still have. There's times where I still have trouble sleeping at night because of things that I've seen and things that I've dealt with, both in the military and as a police officer. And these are things that I don't talk about. I don't go into detail about a lot of this stuff because I just don't feel the need to. Not many people know about some of the things I've seen, some of the things I've dealt with, and some of the things I've done. Um, and a lot of people don't know that at last year, from the months of basically all of last year up until I'd say like September when I met Leah, I was depressed. I was probably the most depressed I've ever been in my entire life. Like I don't know that I've ever really known depression the way that I knew depression last year. And last year it was an awful year up until September.
Did you seek out any kind of help during that time?
I did. I sought out therapy. I did therapy for a few months. And I was going every 2 weeks uh, to meet with a therapist, and which helped. It helped tremendously. And then I want to say the turning point for me was, and I don't know, it may sound cliche, but the turning point for me was Leah. It really was. It was having somebody that just had this bubbly, outgoing, fun personality who let me talk to her, who, and I was going through a breakup at the time that her and I met. Like I had just went through a bad breakup. And, she never pushed and prodded or anything. She let me talk to her. She listened to me, and it just built from there. So, I credit Leah a lot, and, and therapy, kind of as a combo for helping me through what I went through last year.
Well, I mean, it definitely helps to have someone outside of like a therapist who like understands and doesn't judge you about what you're going through and allows you to be vulnerable. And I think that's one of the hardest things as a man, is to be that vulnerable with somebody, because you're former military and a police officer. I'm sure you've been told a lot. Man up, deal with your shit, figure it out. Like handle it, grow a pair, like grow some balls and just fucking handle it, dude. And it's hard because you hold that stuff in, and that probably was holding on, making your depression, I'm assuming. But I shouldn't assume. We just had this whole conversation about don't assume, but I'm guessing, wild guessing, I could be wrong, that was playing really heavily in your depression because you couldn't feel like you didn't have an outlet where you felt safe, where you could like fully express yourself.
And that's exactly right. So, I mean, you're correct. I think and I've been on a podcast in the past that talks about mental illness and first responders and civil servants and things like that. I think there's a certain stigmatism when it comes to talking about mental illness. I think, and especially when it comes to men and men dealing with any kind of mental illness, whether it be depression or anxiety or PTSD or whatever the case may be. Most men feel like if they talk about it or if they express their emotions, that they're going to be looked down upon for doing so, or they're going to be looked at as being weak for doing so. And I'll be honest with you, I felt that way. I felt like if I express these emotions that I'm feeling and these things that I'm going through and these things that I feel like people are going to look at me like, maybe he's not as strong as we thought. He's weak minded. He's this, he's that. And I feel like a lot of men are that way. I feel like a lot of men do hold on to the things and the demons that they deal with versus talking about them and get them out there. I was that way forever. I held on to everything. Any bad thing that happened in my life, I kept it in. I didn't talk about it. I didn't say anything about it. I kept it in until, I would keep it until it exploded. Like something would happen in my life to where I would explode, and every emotion, everything that I felt, everything come out all at once. And, and it would come out on somebody that I cared about. And I didn't mean for it to, but that's just how it was. And I feel like that's men in general. I feel like a lot of men are that way. They hold on to everything until they hit a breaking point.
Yeah, I know I was very much the same way, and I didn't know how to communicate my feelings because I grew up never learning how. My father was very like hold everything in, and then after he died, my mom told me some of like the stuff that he had to do, and I guess I'll share this on the podcast right now because I'm kind of holding on to it and like afraid to talk about it. But so my grandfather, he suffered a lot of strokes, and he eventually hit a point where he was in hospice care in a lot of pain. And my grandmother told him, tell the doctor to pump him full of morphine until he goes. And this was like around my father's birthday when this happened, but essentially he had to tell a doctor kill my dad. And like, yeah, it's kind of like a mercy thing where you're trying to not make him in pain anymore and just let him go. And like his quality of life is horrible and everything like that. But that probably weighed on him a lot. And then, fast forward like 10 years later, my grandma had the same thing. And he had to make the same call. And again, it's like my dad's birthday was in September. It was in September, like a week. Like my grandmother was buried on his birthday. And like after that, like I kept seeing him. I'm starting to remember, like as a kid, seeing him pour himself a rum and coke before going to work, and then he'd get home and have another one, and then just kind of go until the night. And then when he retired, it was he first thing when he woke up, and then he'd proceed all day doing it. And I'd see him go like further and further down the bottle, and then he would have his moments where he would just explode. And I was pretty much the, not like physically, but like verbally, just I would take a lot of the brunt of it, right? And I'm looking back at it now, and I'm just like, I wish he would have said something. I wish he could have talked about it. But he was in that mindset of, I'm the head of the house. I'm supposed to have everything figured out. I'm supposed to have the answers to all the problems and all that shit. Like, that's it. Like, this is it. And like, it affected his and my mom's relationship. Like, they were at a point where like they were married for the sake of being married. It wasn't, but they were both kind of just kept doing their own thing throughout the day. My mom would go volunteer at a church or for like a Christian, uh, I don't want to call it foundation or whatever. And then my dad would just be at home drinking the whole damn day. And he wanted his retirement to be doing stuff with my mom and going up. And his health was also so shit that he couldn't really do anything because he was a chain smoker. He had asthma and COPD, so he could barely fucking breathe as it is. He was overweight and diabetic, so like he really couldn't like physically do a lot of stuff. And so again, just further and further down into the bottle that he went. And it was like, so like after he died and my mom told me that, I was just kind of pissed off at him in the sense of like, I just fucking wish you would have said something. I would have understood. I would have tried to help. And it got me into like this whole like woulda, coulda, shoulda stuff, even though it's like, dude, it's done. Like you can't change the past now. You can't do anything like that. But it for me, it like it humanized him a little bit more. And it made me more sympathetic to his experience because I couldn't imagine having to do that. Like, we had to make the call when my dad died. We had to make the call to let him go.
Right.
He had a heart attack in a parking lot, oddly enough, outside of a hospital. He was picking up meds, but he when they went to like intubate him and get like a tube down his throat so to pump him with full of oxygen, they were like, hey, that went in way too easy. And we have no idea how long he was in the parking lot before an ambulance or over, before somebody realized something was wrong, before somebody found him. And so the doctors were like, there's a really good possibility that his brain didn't get oxygen for a long time and he's going to be brain dead. Or not brain dead, but he's going to suffer or he's going to not be in a good spot. And so we had to make the call to say, let him go. Like, we had to make that call because we knew that that wasn't the kind of life that he wanted, but that was so difficult. And then I also had to watch my mom die, like right in front of me. And it was just kind of like, when my mom died, I didn't make the call. It just happened, but I couldn't imagine telling a doctor, like going, yeah, do that. And then be like totally fine with that decision. You know what I mean? It's still like you're still losing your parent that you loved and
Yeah.
cared about. And it's just like, for him, I was just like, fuck, that's so hard. And again, this comes to like, it taught me a great lesson of I need to be able to be vulnerable. I need to be able to express my emotions. Finding out that level of trust with someone is really difficult. I got lucky that I found a free online mental health program, which I always will promote. It's called Change Algorithm for anybody who needs that help. It's free online mental health therapy. You can be as anonymous as you want to if you want to check it out. But it's helped me immensely. And then now I've learned, you know, how to be able to talk to others and seeing my vulnerability no longer as a weakness, but it's a strength. Like, for anyone who, like, people will talk about like, I don't know, they struggle to hold it in, but yeah, but no one understands like how much strength it takes to seek help. Again, I grew up in the household of figure it out. It's common sense, young man. Just fucking deal with your shit and figure it out. Um, and to be able to like ask for help for something is such a strong move. And so if anyone asks me for help on something, like something as serious as like I need to see a therapist, my mental health is just help, like what can I do? I mean, like, fuck, I thank you for fucking reaching out. That's your number one win right there.
Yeah.
And because again, a lot of people ask for help and people see it like as a weakness, or people are afraid to ask for help because they're afraid to be seen as weak.
And I think that was me. I was afraid to ask for help. I was afraid to talk to anybody because I was afraid of how I would be seen, how I would be viewed, how they would look at me. And I didn't want to be looked at as anything other than like, great, the funny guy, the dude that's got a strong mentality. I didn't
Yeah.
want people to be in that vulnerable state when I absolutely was there 100%.
You have kids,
I
right?
do.
Do you feel it was even harder because you feel like this extra pressure to be like the man for them, to be like the strong-minded person in front of them?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. As a parent, as a father, you're supposed to be the man of the house. You're supposed to lead the house, right? So there is a certain pressure that I feel when it comes to them because I don't ever want them to see me hurting. And I know they have, I try to hide it from them. I tried forever to hide it from them. But, kids are smart. They're very smart. They're a lot smarter than we give them credit for. Especially like my children are 10 and 7, and both of them are incredibly intelligent when it comes to things like that. And I think as parents, we don't give our children enough credit when it comes to things like that. So yeah, it definitely was, being a dad and going through all that. It was tough. It was tough.
I know there was one time I was at my brother's house and my nieces were there and they were like 10 and 4 at the time. And I had an anxiety attack. I was having an anxiety attack at my brother's house. I look at him and I was like, dude, I'm having an anxiety attack right now. And me, like the stereotype of an anxiety attack is like you shut down, you're crying, you're in a ball, you're whatever. I looked like I do right now, where I'm just straight, but like I feel my heart
Mm-hmm.
tensing and I can't breathe. And I'm like, I need to go sit outside. And he goes, okay, like, what, do you need anything? I was like, I need to breathe right now. And then my nieces came out because they're all like, oh, Uncle Andy, he's outside. Like, yeah, we can play. And I had to look at them like with tears coming down my eyes. Like, I can't right now. I can't right now. But I was like allowing them to see me struggle. I was allowing them to go like, hey, your Uncle Andy is not in a good place right now. Like, I'm struggling. And for me, that was me kind of like teaching them. And I always put this like kind of point of emphasis whenever I do like have like a little sit down talk with them, and we end up talking about life somehow, some way, where I just go like, you need to be really kind to people. And because sometimes people go through hard times, and like I know I've seen my nieces shut down when they get really upset about something, and I'll have to be like, no, tell me what's going on. You can talk to me. It's okay. Like, you're feeling sad, you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling upset. And they'll just be like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's okay. Like, you're allowed. Like, it's okay. It happens. And trying to do that. And I think, you know, and again, like, kids pick up on this stuff anyways. Like, they can feel when their parents' energy is a little bit different or whatever. And then for me, it's important for them to see that, because when they're going through something, they can know it's okay. Like, it's not going to last. And I'm sure they've seen your own kind of growth, your own happiness kind of come back since you sought help. And of course, Leah has definitely probably helped a lot. Um, so yeah, that's all I want to say about that. Sorry, that was like a weird rant I just went on. Um, but so you were previously married, yeah?
I was married for God.
He's on an iPhone, everybody who's watching on YouTube.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I was married for God, 11 years. I think it was, yeah, 11 years.
so
Um,
so when you got so when you were divorced and you had your kids, and especially like this will probably even go cover like your previous relationship before Leah too. Did you find it really, that transition from going from divorced like parenting to like one-on-one, like trying to co-parent with somebody that you're no longer together with? did you find that transition like super difficult, and then like the ability to trust someone else again? Because I'm sure, you know, getting divorced is extremely difficult, and that takes a huge toll on your brain, and especially like, you know, if they start dating someone first, or you start dating and there's like a weird vibe, vibrato type, I don't know if vibrato is the right word, but like a weird feeling between it. What was that kind of experience for you?
My divorce, the divorce process for me sucked. It was awful. It was terrible. You know, I know some couples that go through divorce and say that it was very easy and because they got along. My divorce process was completely like it was tumultuous because uh, I left. I was unhappy in my divorce or in my marriage for a long time. Um, Things just weren't cohesive between the two of us. You know, everything was just for me, it just wasn't there. So we ended up filing for divorce. I ended up getting into a relationship shortly after our separation. You know, it was a couple months after our separation. I got into a relationship with another girl, and of course my ex found out about that, and that just sent off a firework show from hell. You know, and it was just one thing after another. My name was dragged through the mud. I was basically the worst human being on the face of the earth. I lost people that I thought were my friends, you know, people that I was really close with for a long time. Um, so for me, yeah, the divorce process was awful. It was terrible, and that's one of those things that put me into a depressed state because, you know, when you get on Facebook and everything you're seeing on Facebook is you, is people talking about you and calling you names and saying you're
Mm,
this and that, and knowing that my children have the ability to see this stuff as well, and then also not knowing officially what's being said to my children, you know, when I'm not around. Um, so those things weighed heavily for me. And last year during the divorce process, you know, I fell into kind of a state of like alcoholism. As you know, I never was diagnosed like as an alcoholic, or I never went to meetings or anything like that. But you know, I was coming home from work and I was cracking open, you know, a case of beer, 12 pack of beer every day, and I would
wow.
drink a 12 pack of beer like every day. I'd come home from work when I got moved to second shift. I'd come home from work at 11 o'clock at night. I'd get home about, you know, 11:15, and I would immediately go to my fridge out back and I would open a beer and I would drink and I would drink and I would drink until I passed out, you know. And I did that for months. I mean, months. And that was until probably when I had my accident back last May, the end of May, when I had my accident and about got killed. Um, you know, that was like an eye-opening experience for me. And at that point, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna put the bottle down, so to speak. I was never really big into liquor, but you know, put the bottle down, so to speak. Let's back off from this alcohol stuff. Let's try to get back to a healthier mind and a healthier body, and just be healthier altogether. Um, so last year, I want to say it was July or August, is when I decided to do the 75 hard challenge for the first time, uh, which is what I'm doing now. Last year, when I decided to do it, it was more like just a mental thing for me. I wanted to test myself mentally, you know, to see how far I could push myself. Uh, Giving up alcohol was huge. That was probably the biggest and toughest thing that I did during that journey was giving up alcohol for 75 days. Um, and I don't know, during that whole ordeal, you know, the 75 hard challenge, the first time I did it, I felt so good, like mentally and physically. Yeah, I still had my struggles. I still had my stuff I went through, but you know, I was getting back to a better me because the 75 hard challenge is a battle within yourself. It's basically what they deem it as. Uh, but I mean, yeah, the divorce, back to the divorce thing, the divorce, yeah, it was, for me, it's terrible. Now I can look like me and my ex-wife we're very cordial with one another. We can carry on conversations with one another without getting pissed off and at each other's throats. We co-parent very well with the children. Most of the decisions that we make are made together. When it comes to our children, when it comes to their education, when it comes to sports, extracurricular activities, whatever the case may be. For that, I'm thankful because, she can call on me, I can call on her, and we've kind of come to an agreement of, at this point, we're not the important ones. The important ones are the kids. We got to make sure that the kids are both, taken care of, and we can make this transition for them easy. And I think us co-parenting as well as we have now has definitely helped our children. So
what was like the process of you going from her dragging your name, getting dragged through the mud, to be able to become like civil and more friendly towards one another and have like the successful co-parenting? Because I know a lot of people who are single parents struggle with the co-parenting thing and struggle with getting along with their ex, because it turns into oh, you just don't like my parenting style, you're saying I'm a bad parent, when it's not that at all.
right. For me, it was during our divorce, I kept my mouth shut. I stayed silent about most everything. I didn't go to social media to bash her or anything like that. I kept silent basically. Seeing all the stuff that was wrote about me on Facebook and all the names that I was called, being called a bad father and being told this, being said this, I just kept my mouth shut. I told myself I'm going to take the high road in this. I'm going to be the bigger person because I know one day my children are going to see this, and I don't want my children to ever resent their mother for anything, And if I'm publicly bashing her and they're seeing this, that could be either work against me or work against her, and I don't want to do either one of them. At the end of the day, she's always going to be their mother. There's nothing I can do to change that. There's nothing I would do to change that. I finally had a conversation with her. I can't remember what it was. There were so many people in my town that was constantly badgering me and badgering my name and badgering my character and just talking down about me, to the point where finally I just had a conversation with her. And I said, listen, does your attorney know that you're making all these statements? Does your attorney know that you're making all these posts? Does your attorney know that you're bashing me publicly on an open forum, and that you've got your friends attacking me and people that I know on a public forum? And she was like, she beat around the bush for a little bit. And I said, I want you to answer the question. Does he know? And she said, no, he doesn't. And I said, well, here are your options. Either one, you can take down every post you made and you can tell all your friends to quit saying what they're saying, quit posting what they're posting. I said, or I'm going to your attorney Monday morning. This conversation took place on Saturday. I said, you can do this, or I'm going to go to your attorney Monday morning. I was like, I know your attorney. I know who he is. I know people that have used him in the past. And I know one thing that he doesn't stand for is he doesn't stand for his clients bashing the people that they're divorcing or splitting up with or whatever. I was like, and I can tell you 100%, if I go to him with all of these posts, because I've got every post screenshotted, I've got all the comments screenshotted, I had a whole album. So I've got it all. I said, if I go to him with this, I said, he's going to drop you and you're not going to have an attorney through this process anymore. I was like, not to mention there were teachers that were making statements and making comments and things like that. So, these people don't need to be making these kinds of statements and saying the things that they're saying about their teachers. They should be held to a higher standard. Just as I'm a cop, I should be held to a higher standard in some things. So we had this conversation and she basically agreed. She said, okay, I'll take down the posts. I'll tell them to stop. I said, that's all I need, and then from that point, we kind of had a turning point. We started to kind of become more friendly with each other. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that, our co-parenting relationship is always sun, rainbows and butterflies, I guess It's not. We do have our issues. We're exes for a reason, right? We do have our issues. Every now and then we will have a little argument here and there, but for the most part, I mean, we can agree to disagree, come to a compromise, and then move on, which has been good. We've been divorced. What's today? The 14th. I think tomorrow will make a year. Yeah, I think tomorrow will be 1 year that we've been divorced.
Oh, so this divorce was a lot more recent
Yeah,
than I thought. Oh, okay. Well, that's freaking huge. And I honestly think, again, who am I to say I don't have kids or anything like that? But I do think that having disagreements from time to time when it comes to co-parenting, I think that's just parents in general, married or not. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Like you're gonna have, and it's important to come to compromise. And I think it's beautiful that you both just said, hey, we need to do what's best for our kids. This isn't about what's going on here between us. It's about what is going to be best for our children, and trying to create the best happy life for them as much as possible. So that's a huge step, and that's a beautiful thing that you were able to do. um I guess my next question would be, like, after you went through all of that, how did you, because that's a very traumatic experience. And I know there's a lot of people out there who, if they went through anything like that, trying to trust another person, especially trying to, like, especially enough to let their walls down and be able to be intimate with them and all those things, is like near impossible. So what led you to be able to trust again and start dating, like meeting Leah? Like, what was it? I know she gave you what you need, but was it like stuff that you learned through therapy, like how, like, loving yourself more and allowing yourself to realize, like, whatever is going on with me is okay, I love and accept myself, and if someone doesn't, that's on them, that's not on me, type of thing? Or was it, like, what was your process to learning to be able to trust again?
I think it was just, I like I said, I was involved in a relationship during the divorce and even after the divorce before Leah came along. Um, and in that relationship, you know, can't say that I didn't have trust issues, because I certainly, I think I did, especially towards the end. Um, for me, it was basically trying to find like happiness, like you said, like happiness within myself. I've always been the guy that I focus so much energy on trying to make everybody happy around me. I focus so much energy on being that guy at a party that wants to make everybody else laugh. When in reality, I'm that guy that's hurting deep down inside, but I'm not going to portray that. Instead, I'm going to be my fun loving, goofy self to make everybody laugh. Um, I focused so much on that for, years that I never really actually truly focused on myself. I never really actually truly like looked in the mirror and said, are you happy? Like, are you truly happy? Is this where you pictured yourself? Is this what you want to be? Um, when I started going through therapy and I started doing my therapy sessions, that was one thing my therapist talked about was, you need to find happiness within yourself, because really and truly, she said, can you truly make somebody happy? Honestly, if you're not happy with yourself, if you're not happy with who you are. And, she was like, you need to take time for yourself. You need to, do things for yourself, exercise, find ways to basically put yourself in a Zen way of thinking and kind of learn. Um, for me, I'll be honest, the gym is one thing that helped me. Going to the gym was a huge outlet for me. All the frustrations that I had built up through the day, all the anxiety I had built up through the day, all the negative thoughts I had built up through the day, I could go to the gym for an hour or 2 hours and put in a good session there and just release all of that. And I'm sure you understand because you go to the gym, pretty often as well. So for me, I think the gym became a huge outlet for me in finding myself and finding a happiness that I didn't know. Um, when Leah and I first met and we first started talking, again, I was just out of a relationship. And I think for me with her, there was something calming about her. There was something that was just, I didn't feel like I had to worry about anything when I talked to her. I didn't feel like I was anxious when I was talking to her. I didn't
Mm,
feel like I was having any of these negative thoughts or anything. Like when I was talking to Leah, when we were messaging and texting and things, I was just at a like in a peace of mind that I haven't felt in a long time.
mm,
Uh, I can't put a finger on what it was that put me there, but that's just where it's just how I felt. There was something about her that anytime I heard from her, anytime I got a message from her, or when we would talk or whatever, there was just a peace of mind that I got that came over me just with her. And I get that even still today, almost 8 months later. I still get that with her. I get that feeling whenever she texts me, whenever we FaceTime, whenever we talk, when I see her on live or whatever. Um, she was she was an easy one to trust. I never felt like I wouldn't be able to trust her. When her and I
mm.
met and we got to talking and we got to knowing each other, and I got to kind of learn about her and some of her past relationships and some of the things that she's been through, I got to thinking, this girl is vulnerable. She's extremely vulnerable. And she's one that when she's in a relationship, she's a lot like me. She puts her whole self out there, and she does it quickly. And I'm the same way. When I get involved in a relationship with somebody that I care about, I'm going all in. I'm putting myself out there immediately. You either take it or you don't. Um, and I think because her and I are similar in that aspect, that it was just easy for both of us to dive in and get involved. When I met her, I was in the mindset of I don't want a relationship. I don't, I just got out of a relationship. I don't want to be in another relationship right now. I want to be single for a little bit, but then when she came along shortly thereafter my relationship ended, I got to thinking, a woman like this only comes along once in a lifetime. You're only going to get one shot at this. And if you don't take this opportunity now, and this is where Team Leap comes from, oddly enough. I'm like, if you don't take this opportunity right now, if you don't take this leap right now, you may not have this shot again.
Yeah.
If you let this opportunity to be with this girl slip through your fingers right now, as good as a woman as she is, somebody else is going to take that opportunity, and you're left in the wind.
Yeah.
So me, I had to kind of dig deep and say, you know what? Yeah, I might not 100% be ready for a relationship, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to give it a go. And I did. I took the leap. I dove in head first. And for me, it was one of the best decisions I've made in my 36 years of living.
Dude, that's amazing. And I resonated so much with a lot of things you were saying. Yeah, I struggled a lot to like find like a happiness within myself. I grew up never feeling like I belonged with any kind of group of people. And for me, it was, yeah, it's the funny fat kid. And it was just like, oh, if I can get you to like me by making you laugh, yeah, I'm gonna do that. And that was my like humor was like my coping mechanism. That was my defense mechanism too. It stopped me from being bullied and shit like that. And then when I started like working out and everything like that, it was part of it was for me because I thought it was going to cure my depression. I thought it was going to be like one of those things where, oh, I'm going to get skinny, I'm going to get abs, and then people are going to like me type of thing. And then, yeah, it turned into therapy, and like the gym was like my release point, especially when I had to take care of my mom, and my sole focus was just getting as strong as humanly possible. Because if I had to move like heavy furniture or something around the house, or if I had to move something out of the way because she fell and like I needed to help get her up or anything like that, or if I had to pick her up and carry her, I never wanted her to feel like it was that she was a burden. I like, mom,
Right.
this is like the lightest fucking shit for me to do of all time. Like this is no big deal. Like don't worry about it. It's fine. And then, well, then I realized like, after the shit that I dealt with, like the gym can only do so much. And a lot of people use the gym as their therapy, and it is a great outlet. And almost any therapist will tell you exercise is huge. It gets, the good hormones flowing. It does reduce your stress and anxiety and all of those things. But it's also, you hit a point where it's like it can only do so much for you. For some, it's enough, but sometimes, like, reaching out for help and having someone to talk to, or learning different coping mechanisms, and using different tools to help you with your mental issues is a thing too. And yeah, that's and then the fact that like you were able to meet someone and you took the leap of faith into doing it, which is that is huge. And it's like, I'm assuming you trusted your gut instinct on that. And that's been a
Absolutely.
thing. That's been a thing for me that lately, where I've been learning to trust my gut, because I've spent, like, again, most of my life trying to make other people really proud of me. And again, that's where like trying to become a police officer and stuff like that. But I had a really bad gut feeling. And I was super close to getting hired by LAPD. And I just went, there's some like my screaming at me, don't do it. Don't do it. And I was like, okay, I got to learn to listen to it. And that's kind of where it's like led me to now where I am in life. And it's like I'm finally at a point where I'm like finally doing something for me and finding happiness within myself and being proud of myself for what I'm doing, versus like, what my brother might want me to be like. Or I've lost friendships because they're like, I can't believe you're doing this and you're not finding like this like stable 9 to 5 job and trying to become like more financially stable and yada yada yada. And I'm like, I get it, that's the grown-up adult thing to do, but I'm trying to take my shot at doing something different and something that I feel like I could be really proud of doing. And while, yeah, I could be the most stressed out person on the face of the planet, but if I'm content with what I'm doing and I see the bigger picture behind it, then for me, it's like worth it. And I'm sure
Yeah.
like you've had that feeling with Leah. You're like, I have a gut feeling. I don't want to be in a relationship right now, but there's just something here, and you felt it and you just went, fuck it.
Yeah.
And and a lot of times it's people needing to hear the fuck it, that having the fuck it moment. Like, fuck it, I'm gonna do this. And it's important to have, I think it's like extremely important to have those moments, because it's better to say fuck it and try than
Yeah.
go, I wonder what would have happened if I did.
And that, and that's for me, like that's me, is I know right now I would be sitting, and it doesn't matter where I could be in life right now. If I didn't have her, and if I didn't take that moment to say fuck it, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna go, head first here, I would be sitting right now wondering, like, what would have happened? Like, what, if I would have taken that shot, if I would have taken that opportunity, like, what would have happened? Where would we have been? Or where would we be right now? Like, I've always been one of those people. Like, if I don't take an opportunity when it's there in front of me and I let it slip through my fingers, I've always been one of those people that looks back like, damn, what could have happened, or what could have been, or what might have happened had I done this or done that. And I know they say not to dwell on your past. I don't necessarily say I'm dwelling on my past, but I do. There's a lot of opportunities that have came up in my life that I didn't take, or I let slip through my fingertips, or I pissed them away, whatever the case may be. And I just think, well, like, what would my life be like had I not done that? But then on the flip side of things, I have to look at it and say, well, I feel like a lot of things in life happen for a reason too.
Mm-hmm.
And, had I taken some of those opportunities, maybe I wouldn't be where I am right now. Maybe I wouldn't be with Leah. Maybe I wouldn't, have my children. Maybe I wouldn't have the things that I have. Maybe I wouldn't be doing the things that I'm doing. So, it works kind of, it works both ways, I guess,
Yeah, I've had therapists talk about like the woulda, shoulda, couldas, and how like dangerous that really could get, because it's something that you have zero control over. Like, what's done is done, it's happened.
mm-hmm.
Try to find the gratitude and the blessings of what you have now. Going like, man, if I, like me, like if I continued to play football in high school, what would have happened? Would I have gotten a scholarship to this school, or would I have become like a professional football player? Like, this could have happened, that could have happened, that could have happened. But the reality is like, no, that didn't happen. And I'm here
Right.
now where I'm at in life now. Like, I think regardless, it's you're wherever you're at right now is where you're supposed to be. I mean, like, think about it. Like you just said, like, what if I did this? I wouldn't have Leah, I wouldn't have my kids, blah, 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 blah. You wouldn't have the job, the house, the car that you have, or whatever. And I imagine if I didn't have that, what would I be happy? because
Yeah. Right.
you seem like a such more like content, happy man now. And I'm sure you're feeling like as happy as you've ever been in your life. And I know for me, I battled so much depression for most of my life. And like I'm at this point now in my life where I'm, I guess you could say happy. I'm more loving of myself and more gentle with myself now than I've ever been in my life. Do I wish I could have learned all these tools a hell of a lot sooner? Sure, yeah, why not? But I think that everyone's on their own timeline. Everyone arrives to where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to do it. I saw this quote. I'm going to butcher it because I don't know it word for word, but paraphrasing it, it's that it's impossible for 7 billion people on this planet to all follow the same timeline.
Right.
Like everyone's supposed to arrive
I like,
where they're supposed to when they're supposed to do it. Because I saw like another one where it's like people in their 40s are going, oh my God, I have all my life left to go. And then people are in their 20s are going, oh my God, I got to figure my shit out now or else my life is over. And it's like try to have the 40-year-old mindset in your 20s where you're not trying to like realize that you have time. And I know for me, I don't know if this was for you because we're similar in age. Did you grow up going like if you don't have your shit figured out by 30, your life's over, you're an old person, like you're supposed to have the house, the picket fence, the wife, the kids, the car, all by 30?
I think for me, yeah, I had that kind of mindset that, you know, I needed to have everything. I don't know that I ever put an age cap on it, but, you know, I think I had a goal set in mind. Whereas, you know, by this certain age, I want to have this, I want to have that, and kids and all the whole 9 yards. So I agree with you on a sense there. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know like for me, it was like, man, by the time you hit 30, like that's old. Like you got to have your shit figured out. And then like I've been bitch slept enough by life to where like, but when I was 30, my mom died, and then like my whole world crumbled, and I had to learn to figure out what am I gonna do now? Like, what is my
Yeah.
life supposed to look like? And like I got my PTSD comes from the death of my mom. And it took me like almost a year just to even be able to leave my house for more than a couple hours without having a severe panic attack and freaking the fuck out. And then after I finally got over that, it turned into okay, I'm ready to go back into the real world right now. I took what I called a fuck it trip to London, which was which was it was very bizarre. When I told my brother I was going to do it, he was like, "What the fuck?" Okay, but I was like, I need to do something for me. I've always wanted to go to this place. Uh, my dad traveled a lot when he was younger. He was in the Air Force, so he traveled a lot. And he also went on like a bunch of European trips with my grandmother and everything like that. And he always talked about it and how great he loved it. And I always just wanted to go there growing up. So I was like, oh, this would be like a cool, like honoring my father type of trip too. And I was like, this is going to be my test. Can I go out into the real world again? Because if I go, I'm going to fucking across the world. If I
Mm-hmm.
have a fucking panic attack there, it ain't like I can switch my ticket and come straight home or whatever. It's a fucking 10-hour flight. I'm not going to be able to be sitting there panicking for 10 straight hours trying to get home or whatever, right? And so it was like, I got to do this for me. I got to just say fuck it and go and see what happens. And it turned out to be like the best trip I've ever been on in my entire life. And I went by myself. Like I didn't go with anybody. I met cool people. I reconnected with a cousin who was she was from originally from Poland. She happened to live in France, and then she was like, "Oh, you're fucking on this side of the world. I'm gonna come meet you in London randomly." And I haven't seen her since I was like 15 years old. So it's been like 15 years since I've seen her, and it was just like this like otherworldly, like amazing trip. And then when I came home, I was like, "Yeah, I can fucking." I just did that. I can do it. I can get back into the real world. And then it was like the whole trying to figure out what the fuck am I gonna do? And like trying to like dealing with the anxieties of that. And my again, like my PTSD wasn't healed. I still wasn't fully healed from well, fully healed is a touchy word for me to say. Because I don't ever think anybody's ever fully healed. They just get the tools to learn how to handle that when that
Right.
stuff arises. But I didn't know how to handle any of that yet. And again, it's like everything that has happened in my life has led me to where I'm at now. And I'm at this place now where I'm so much kinder to myself. And yes, I'm still working on myself and healing and all those things, but I feel like I'm in such a better place now for myself and not trying to people please or anything like that. And like accepting of myself and realizing how cool of a person I am and all those things than I ever was then. And I think that's like the important thing. I know a lot of people are thinking like they could be in this headspace where like, I'm fucked. I can't get out of this. Like this is going to be the rest of my life. When the reality is that sometimes you just have to take a leap. You got to jump into something. You got to say, fuck it, seek out help and figure it out. And I think like, that's why I asked you, like, what were some of the steps that you were taking to do that? Because sometimes people go, you'll hear like, just love yourself, just be happy. Stop thinking that way. And it's like, oh, okay. Like it's fucking way easier said than done, dude. I think, yeah. And that's always the comeback. That's so much easier said than done. And I'm like, I know, like, this is kind of the point of me doing this podcast is going like, what's been your steps? Like, what can we show to like, be like, you didn't just you didn't go from point A to point Z. Like there's a roadmap in between and you're taking like different directions to try to get there and figure it out. And it's a lot of work and it sucks. Like when people hear work, but yeah, it's a lot of work and it's worth it. And you have your good days and you have your fucking bad days. And it's just like that's part of the journey. But when you're having those bad days, like the bad days don't suck as much because you end up being kinder to yourself. I don't know if that's been your situation, but for me, it's been like, I've noticed I'm a lot kinder to myself. Oh, dogs see something. Dog's making another appearance on the podcast. But like I've noticed I'm a lot kinder to myself and I'm not as harsh on myself when I'm having those bad days.
Almost like we're more forgiving of ourselves, and
100%. It's all about counting those. It's all about counting those victories, man. And speaking of, I got to thank you again so much for all your time on here and doing this. But the way I like to, as we wind down the podcast here a little bit, I have one final question for you. I'm a big proponent of counting our victories, no matter what they are. It could be something as little as I got out of bed today to I solved world hunger or I ended poverty or whatever. Like it doesn't matter how big or how small they are. So Gray, my question for you, my friend, is what is a victory that you've had today?
Just being able to spend time with my kids. For over a month, it's been well over a month. I have not had more than one consecutive day with my children.
Wow.
Because of my work, because I've been working so much. And so this is the first time in about a month and a half that I've had my children for more than one consecutive day. So for me, that's a huge thing for me today. My kids are my life. I love my children more than anything. So being able to spend time with them is it's huge for me.
Dude, that's beautiful. I'll share mine is not as pretty as that one. That was fucking gorgeous. So I have like this little group of friends at the gym, and we always joke like if we hit a PR on something and like the others aren't there to see it, like we always have to film it. It's like if you didn't film it, it didn't count. And so we have like this little group chat, and one of my buddies was like, "Hey, I just hit this deadlift PR," and I was like, "Did you film it?" And he's like, "No, I didn't film it." And they're like, "Oh, it doesn't count." He's like, "Oh, but I have witnesses." And like, I knew one of the people that was there who would have saw him do it. And I was like, I knew exactly what he was talking about. And so in my head, I was like, all right, I'm going to fuck with him. I'm going to find that person. I'm going to film him saying, no, I didn't see it. And then give my friend shit about it. Like, see, you should have fucking filmed your fucking PR. And then, so today at the gym, I happened to run into that guy. And I was like, hey man, so our friend Victor, like, he said he pulled his PR and he said that you saw him. And I was like wondering if I could just film you saying that you didn't see him do it. And he goes, wait, he pulled a PR? I don't remember seeing it. And I was like, this is fucking even better. Oh my God. so So he filmed it. So I filmed it. And then I was like, see, this is why you fucking film your PRs, dude. And then I sent it to our group chat and he was like, what? This is bullshit. I was set up. And I was like, I'm going to be honest with you, dude. I was trying to set you up. I was just gonna send this as a joke. Like, yeah, sure, you probably did pull your PR. We don't care, but this is just like our little just ribbing you a bit. But it's like he genuinely said to me he did not realize that you pulled the PR. And he got so upset, and it just made me laugh so hard. And it was just kind of like that was my little victory of the day, just to be able to do that, because it brought a moment of joy to my day. And I've been stressed the fuck out lately, so it was
Oh
just
yeah.
kind of like one of those like instant like stress relievers, because I was just like I'm dying internally, and then just seeing
Yep.
the group chat just go off and going like, ooh, someone just got called out, and it was a fun little ribbing. But yeah.
It's a good moment. That's a good moment.
Well, my friend, I thank you so much again and for doing this. If y'all are not following this man on the TikToks and Instagram, again, I will reiterate the TikTok Peacock. Uh and again, he's doing an amazing thing, just being himself, and that's what's even more beautiful. He's just being himself, and he's showing that like police officers are real people too. And thank you so much for sharing your stories and your experiences with all of us today. I seriously, truly appreciate you. And to anyone who is listening and watching this right now, I sincerely appreciate you for doing so and supporting this. I just ask that you please share this with somebody who might be interested in this type of thing. Like, comment, subscribe, leave a review on the whatever podcast app that you're listening this to. Um, and yeah, I appreciate you, all of you, so much. Please continue to be kind to yourselves and be good.
Have a good